It happened so quickly. It was like a bomb went off.
In 2017, central Portugal is hit by a devastating wildfire.
Day had turned to night within seconds.
We just thought, whoa, we need to leave. We need to get out.
It was pure panic. All you could see was people screaming.
I honestly thought I would die there.
It's the worst wildfire in Portugal's history. Its aftermath is devastating. It's a tragedy that leaves an entire nation stunned. Now, eyewitness accounts, survivors' footage, and expert scientific analysis reveal how a series of critical events combine to create an unprecedented disaster. In the heart of central Portugal is the region of Pedrógão Grande. It's a rural area of densely forested rolling hills, dotted with small picturesque towns and villages.
I moved to the village with my wife Jackie about 10 years ago. Came here from the UK, just really to find a better way of life, I suppose. And the locals have made us very welcome here. They've accepted us. We've made a good little life here. It's very peaceful and calm, a tranquil little place, yeah.
I live with my husband, my parents, and my son. In the village, we all know each other. We are good friends. We get on with each other and help each other out. We all live in harmony with one another.
I wasn't born here, but have been in Pedrógão for 40 years. It was, and still is, beautiful. Everyone knows each other. People help each other, help their neighbors. Should a neighbor need anything, we are always there.
In the summer months, Pedrógão Grande can be extremely hot, with temperatures often reaching 85 degrees Fahrenheit. But 2017 is a record breaker.
2017 was a very, very hot summer. We had already been warned it would be very hot, but we never thought the temperature would go that high.
By June, there's been no rain for 3 weeks, and temperatures hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Fire is quite common in Portugal. In a normal fire season, yes, you do have fires, you do have damage, but the fire services can cope with it.
But 2017 is far from ordinary. Before the prolonged drought, Pedrógão Grande received abundant rainfall, creating the perfect conditions for a major fire season.
You had that period of time where you had more precipitation, more rainfall, you had a lot of fuels grow, and then that gives you that much more fuel to burn. And that's one of the perfect recipes you can get for fires. Any sort of fire that was gonna ignite during this time frame had the potential to be problematic.
In 2017, the weather was extreme, perfect fire weather.
The landscape was bone dry and covered in thick forest. So all that was needed for a disaster fire to happen was one spark.
On June 17th at 2:30 p.m., a small fire is reported in a densely forested river valley 3 miles from the town of Pedrogo Grande. Fire Chief Sergio Lorenzo immediately responds.
That day I was home. I had just finished my lunch when I heard the siren. I knew that when the siren goes off, that there's a fire, and they are calling the firemen in. I got into my uniform, and I took the command car, and I went as fast as I could towards the fire. I thought it would be a bit more of a difficult fire. Due to the heat we had that day, it was already really hot.
In the time it takes Sergio to arrive at the fire, it's developed and spreading fast.
This area here was all covered in flames. The fire covered everything. There was a lot of heat and lots of smoke, thick smoke.
Sergio immediately marshals the approaching fire trucks to try and get them ahead of the growing blaze.
My priority is always to find routes and roads, to put combat cars in front of the fire.
4 miles away, Dave and his wife Jackie are at home in Figueira.
I think we noticed the fire probably about mid-afternoon. We could see it from the balcony.
Maria de Sau is also at home in the nearby village of Nodorinho.
I was at home, then I went outside and saw smoke towards Pedrógão. So I went back in the house and told my husband.
By 3 p.m., the fire is spreading rapidly south from the ignition site. The speed of the fire's expansion is partly down to the type of trees planted here, used extensively by Portugal's paper industry.
We're in a eucalyptus forest here. You see these beautiful quality trees. They're producing good fiber for pulp and paper. Eucalyptus is native to Australia and was exported from there to many parts of the world, including Portugal. Eucalyptus has some very positive traits in terms of forestry. It is a very fast-growing species. And after the first rotation, it resprouts, and you get a second and a third rotation with no replanting.
But there is one major drawback to eucalyptus.
They're also producing a lot of litter on the ground here. Very burnable, flammable litter. The price you pay for this beautiful, easy-to-farm tree is you increase your fire hazard because you produce that type of litter that is waiting for a fire to happen. It also produces this kind of bark that is peeling off. If this catches fire, the wind takes it away. And this makes it also possible for a surface fire to climb up into the canopy, and it will ignite fire somewhere else.
This ability for eucalyptus embers to travel on the wind and start further fires is a phenomenon known as spotting. At the University of Coimbra Fire Lab in central Portugal, Professor Domingos Viegas studies fire in a controlled environment to analyze its behavior.
The point of this experiment is to look at the spotting produced by eucalyptus trees. We want to see what are the conditions in which the eucalyptus tree burns and how it spreads spots at different distance, varying the velocity of the wind.
Eucalyptus is especially prone to spotting compared to other tree species.
With spot fires, you get additional multiple ignitions ahead of your main fire, which means you're dealing with several fires in the same landscape.
Professor Villegas's experiments have discovered that eucalyptus is capable of starting new fires over vast distances.
In Portugal, we have registered spotting from eucalyptus bark at 10 to 11 kilometers.
Carried on the wind and spreading fast, the Pedrogo Grande fire grows increasingly out of control. By 3:45 p.m., firefighters from across the Pedrogo Grande region battle to control the fire, which now covers 61 acres. To make matters worse, a completely new fire is reported over 7 miles away from the first fire. Volunteer firefighter Fernando Tomé is called to his station. He and his crew of 4 race to the site of the new fire.
When we got to the fire zone, we were all surprised. I was surprised. We said, this is chaos.
Just like the main fire, it's spreading fast. The eucalyptus forests are densely planted and largely unmanaged. With very few fire breaks and woodland that grows right up to roads and houses, there is nothing to stand in the fire's way. As the main fire continues its relentless march south, it burns so fiercely it begins to create its own weather system. A thick vertical column of smoke and ash is formed above the fire. Within it, hot air, loaded with moisture from the vegetation, rises rapidly to create a fire-formed cloud known as a pyrocumulus. The hot, rising plume draws in fresh, oxygen-rich air from around the fire, creating strong winds at ground level that fan the flames even further.
You get wind and air rushing towards the center of the fire. It starts burning hotter, which means more air needs to come into it. That process keeps repeating. Essentially, it becomes this kind of self-sustaining entity.
As the pyrocumulus cloud continues to grow, there's another, even more dangerous situation developing. To the southeast, dry thunderstorms are forming and heading straight for the fire.
So dry thunderstorms are essentially a thunderstorm, but much of the precipitation will evaporate before it reaches the ground. I mean, if you're dreaming up worst case scenario, this would pretty much be it. When dry thunderstorms are nearby, not only can you start new fires from the cloud-to-ground lightning, but then you can get strong winds emanating from these thunderstorms.
Until now, the prevailing wind has spread the fire directly southwards, ensuring the fierce and rapidly moving fire front remains narrow. But as the thunderstorm arrives, its violent gusts quickly cause the wind direction to change by 90 degrees. In an instant, what used to be the long, slow-burning western flank of the fire becomes a new, vast fire front that quickly begins spreading west.
It just created this almost unbelievable scenario for fire spread. And not only do you have a much quicker spreading fire, but you also have a wider flaming front that is going to encounter, more fuel and endanger more people and more residences.
For those trying to fight the fire, this sudden shift is a potential killer.
Many firefighters, common tactics is you can work around the flanks to try to kind of hem in the fire. And so if you're on the flanks and then the flank all of a sudden becomes the head fire, that's a very dangerous situation.
Fire Chief Sergio Lorenzo is among those who are close to the fire's new western front.
A partir daí, no fogo, the fire started to get worse. The smoke blocked the sun out so much. It was dark as night. It started spreading. So it was growing larger and larger. The speed was such that we couldn't keep up with it.
By 6:30 p.m., the vast fire front is spreading rapidly westwards and approaching Maria's village fast.
When I came outside, you couldn't see a thing. It was all dark, there was no sun. The wind was so strong, it was hard to stand up. It made us fall over. It was all dark, pitch black, you couldn't see anything. It was... I can't explain. It was hell.
As the fire reaches the outskirts of Maria's village, she realizes she has to make a life or death decision, to stay or try to escape in her car. But she's left it too late.
I couldn't drive away because the flames were already crossing the road. Then I remembered the water tank and thought, let's get to the water. We really thought we would all die. So I got my mother and we went into the water.
A mile away, Dave realizes that the fire is far more serious than he first thought.
Basically, the whole horizon was just filled with a wall of smoke as far as the eye could see. And I'm talking about maybe 20 kilometers. And you could hear like a roar, as if it was a roar of the ocean. This was a big fire out of control. Jackie and I went back down into the courtyard. In that short space of time, things had worsened unbelievably. Day had turned to night within seconds. We ran for the hose and we weren't achieving much. Some of the olive trees had taken a light and the eucalypt at the bottom was catching a light as well.
As the blaze rapidly approaches the house, Dave and his wife Jackie are forced to make the same life or death decision, to stay or try to escape.
We decided to get the vehicles and leave the property. I said to Jackie, follow me. Jackie was behind me with the dogs in the small van. The conditions were worsening by the second. There was fire everywhere, both sides of the road. The smoke was just unbelievable, and you could feel the intensity of the heat. I should think some of the flames would have been 20, 30 foot tall. The trees here, all ablaze, everything alight. You could even feel the heat in the vehicle.
Dave doesn't realize it, but he and Jackie are heading straight into the main fire front. By 7:30 p.m., the Pedrogo Grande fire has devoured more than 6,500 acres, and spotting has spawned multiple smaller fires. Now these fires merge to create one unbroken fire front.
fires interact with each other or merge, it can increase the intensity of the fires and can increase its rate of spread. That's a very dangerous situation.
As the fires merge and intensify, temperatures reach as much as 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit, and volatile winds reach speeds of 80 miles per hour.
Soaring temperatures in Portugal are threatening efforts to bring a raging forest fire under control, according to the country's officials.
As Portugal's monster wildfire begins to make headlines around the world, the news that her hometown of Figueiro dos Vinhos is in danger reaches Nadia Piazza.
When I heard about the fire, I was working in Ireland. I started to find out about it through social media, getting updates from people about a large fire in the Pedrógão Grande area. At that moment, I had a very bad feeling.
Nadia tries to call her 4-year-old son in Pedrógão Grande, who is with his dad, her ex-husband, but the fire has destroyed telephone masts across the region.
I couldn't reach his father or anyone. That got me panicking.
In the heart of the inferno, Fire Chief Sergio Lorenzo navigates blazing back roads as he continues to coordinate fire crews. Suddenly, he sees a man stumbling out of the smoke.
His hands and his face. You could see they were all burned. That's what I saw first. What immediately jumped out at me were his hands. His hands were all covered in blood and totally burned. His face too. We couldn't even make out his ears when he came out of the fire. My concern was to get him out of here, from where the fire was, so I could try to help him.
Sergio manages to escape the fire and get the man to safety, where he is treated for his burns. 4 miles away, Dave and his wife Jackie, who's following close behind, are unwittingly driving towards the fire. With 20-foot flames and intense heat on both sides of the road, Dave's vehicle starts to falter.
The van started to splutter, and all to the right of me here, the smoke and the flames were just coming over the top of the vehicle. 20 or 30 yards up the road after that, the van just cut out. And I thought, this isn't good. I've got to do something. And that's when I decided I had to get out of the vehicle. My first reaction was to call Jackie, thinking she was behind me. To my horror, she wasn't behind me. I couldn't believe that Jackie wasn't there. We left in such a panic. I didn't even have a mobile phone on me. I just hoped and prayed that she had the sense to turn round and go back to the house. I was just hoping and praying that that's what she'd done.
As the village of Notarinho is engulfed in flames, Maria and her elderly parents are joined in a small water tank by other villagers. They too are desperate to escape the ferocious heat and flames.
There were probably 11, 12 people inside the tank. The air was very heavy, and we still felt the heat because the wind was so strong that was pushing the flames from outside into the tank. We were throwing water over ourselves because the temperature was so unbearably hot. It burned. We could feel the heat on our bodies, even though we were in the water. Everyone was crying and screaming. It was pure panic.
Then, from the water tank, Maria sees another local family trying to escape by car.
Gina drove past us, and I screamed and said, "Gina, stop the car and come into the water." She didn't hear me and kept driving. There was so much smoke and fire she couldn't see and veered off to the side of the road.
Gina and her son escape the car, but her mother and 4-year-old daughter are trapped in the back seat.
She got out of the car, then when she went to open the rear door, where her 4-year-old daughter was, she couldn't open it because the rubber didn't. It seemed like it was melting. She just couldn't open the door.
Unable to free them, Gina and her son rush to the water tank.
When she got here, she screamed and said, "Help me, look, my mother and daughter are trapped. Let's get them out." But it was impossible for us to reach them. Because of the fire, there was no way we could get through it. She wouldn't stop screaming for us to get her daughter. And I said, "Gina, we can't. Try to stay calm." She was very burned. She couldn't take it. She screamed a lot. It was horrible. Hell.
Just before 8 p.m., Maria's village is completely surrounded by fire, and the blaze continues to spread quickly westwards. For those who've chosen to try to outrun the fire, there is one major escape route left: the main N236 road. Wide, with areas either side of it free from trees, it should be a relatively safe way out. But as firefighter Fernando Tomé races along it, he finds the landscape is completely ablaze.
This is exactly the route we were on. When we got here, we could see that ahead of us, everything was consumed by fire, coming towards us at such a high speed. We suddenly realized the enormity of the situation.
What Fernando doesn't know is that the pyrocumulus cloud that's been constantly growing in size and strength is closing in on this major escape route, and it's morphing into something even more destructive.
Pyrocumulus cloud keeps intensifying and keeps, developing vertically. Then it kind of switches gears into what we call a pyrocumulonimbus cloud. That's essentially a fire-generated thunderstorm over a fire.
As the fast, fire-breathing pyrocumulonimbus cloud grows in height and mass, it draws in more and more hot air to sustain it. By 7:50 p.m., it reaches 40,000 feet into the stratosphere. This is a critical turning point. At that altitude, the cloud begins to cool, and the hot air isn't enough to keep it aloft. Running low on power, the cloud begins to collapse under its own weight, plummeting towards Earth in a phenomenon known as a downburst. And right beneath it are those trying to escape on the N236.
was like a bomb went off, like a fireball was in the sky when it collapsed.
The downburst creates wind speeds in excess of 70 miles per hour. Acting like a vast set of bellows, it supercharges the fire.
It happened so quickly, there's no escaping it. It would have been on them in an instant. It's pretty much not survivable when you have those sort of conditions.
30 people die on this 300-yard stretch of road. By 8 p.m., the supercharged inferno created by the collapsing fire cloud accelerates the fire spread even further. Fernando and his crew drove through the area of the downburst just moments before it happened. But as they race along the N236, they're engulfed by fire and blinded by thick smoke.
This is precisely where the accident took place. There was another car coming towards us at high speed. We had time to shout, "We're going to hit it!" Then we did hit it. The impact was like something out of this world. The car that crashed into us was thrown here. Our truck was in the other lane. The fire immediately spread all around us. There was no time for anything. I went to check to see if there was anything we could do for the people inside the car. But there was no way. They were unconscious. We couldn't do anything for them. There was no way to save anyone from that accident. The heat was, it was just so hot because the fire was on both sides, and we were in the middle of it. It was too hot to stay here, so we had to abandon the car. We ran in that direction. It was the road crossing ahead.
Fernando and his crew run towards the only cover they can find.
The only protection we had were the traffic signs. We were here for a while, crouching behind the signs, like this. It was all the protection we had. The fire was all around us, so we didn't have anywhere else to hide. I had the cap, but I lost it in the wind, and my hair started burning with the heat. I honestly thought I would die there.
Fernando and his crew endure the intense heat for 45 minutes. They're eventually rescued by an ambulance crew and rushed straight to hospital.
I burned my hands. I burned my whole face, my head, the back of my legs, calves. I also burned 30% of my airways.
When the sun comes up the following day, the scale of the fire's destruction is revealed for the first time. As the fire dies down around the village of Notorino, Dave leaves a house where he took refuge overnight and goes in search of his wife, Jackie.
Waited till first light and decided to cycle to our friends Terry and Maria, who live at a local village only 5 minutes away. I was just hoping and praying that I didn't see the wreckage of Jackie's vehicle. That's just what I didn't want to see. There was still a lot of smoke about. The heat coming off the banks was still intense, really hot. Trees were burning. And I just started to come round a corner on the bike, and I had to stop because I didn't really believe what I was seeing. There was a young girl lay dead in the road. She'd obviously came from the opposite direction. A vehicle had hit a tree. You could see where the door had opened. She'd obviously tried to run, but she lay in the road in front of me. Not knowing where Jackie was and just seeing the young girl, that was a terrible feeling, yeah.
Desperate to find his wife and fearing the worst, Dave continues his search for Jackie. Nadia Piazza hurries back to Portugal and heads straight to her ex-husband's house, desperate for news of her son, Luis.
We drove to the family home, where my family should have been with my son, his dad, his grandma, and many other people. When I got to the house, I panicked because I saw a house totally in the dark, with the gates open, as if it had been abandoned. I looked everywhere. No one could tell me anything. I went to all the shelters with a list of names in my hand. I was crying. I knew they wouldn't be there. I got a call from the police saying their car had been caught in the fire.
Luis, his father, and 7 other members of his family all died on the N236 during the catastrophic downburst. Still frantically searching for his wife, Jackie, Dave makes it to his friend's house.
Saw that Terry Maria's vehicle was there, which was good. They answered the door straight away. I said, I can't find Jackie, need some help.
They head straight to the nearby town, where many of the locals have taken refuge for the night.
He kept trying to reassure me that she's going to be okay. A terrible feeling. We drove into Figaro, and there Jackie stood in front of us. we just embraced each other, and my friend Terry said it was something which movies are made of.
Dave turned up with Terry in the car and I saw him and he climbed out the car.
Just to see her alive was, yeah, it was unbelievable.
I said I'd never fall out with him again, but I have. But, yeah. And I just said, where have you been? I was just so thankful he was alive.
After a good few hugs and kisses and realising that we were both still alive, and I thought we were both very, very lucky.
The Pedrogo fire rages for another 3 days. Water-bombing planes and helicopters arrive from Spain, France, and Italy to help. It takes 2,000 firefighters and the help of hundreds of military personnel to finally extinguish it. In total, the fire destroys 115 square miles. More than 200 people are injured, and 67 lose their lives. Portugal's media dubbed the N236 the Road of Death. Some experts warn that this is unlikely to be the last time Portugal will experience a disaster on this scale.
I'm pretty sure that a disaster fire like this can happen again. It doesn't matter which climate change scenario you accept, all of them are predicting more severe fire weather in the future. And knowing that we have these large areas of land covered in dense forest, make sure we will have disaster fires in the future like this.
Fernando's burns were so severe, doctors placed him in a coma for 2 months to allow his lungs to heal.
The scars will stay with me for life. I will have to live with that forever. What worries me most is the problem with my lungs.
It scarred our lives forever. It's so difficult because every day we pass the places where we lost our friends. Even if we wanted to forget, we couldn't. We remember it every day. And it worries us that it could happen again. The same thing. This is what worries me the most.